Hello and welcome to Educated STEM. I am Kate, the founder of Educated STEM, and today I'm going to be talking to you about applying to internship programs. And this is something I know an awful lot about. I was involved with one for many years. I have read every single application that came through that program during my time. So it's probably 7,000 plus applications. And so I know exactly how they're judged, what they're looking for, and I know the really silly mistakes that people make all the time. And so I'm going to give you my advice about how to apply to the program and how to answer some of the questions. But I know that some of you are going to be like, Kate, that is such stupid advice. It's obvious. Well, if I'm telling you now, it's because so many people didn't think it was obvious and they did not get it correct when they applied to the program. So trust me, if I'm saying it, it's because there are enough people who make it or don't get it right, definitely don't take the time to put in a good application. So if I say it, please, don't ignore the information. If I'm saying it, enough people need to hear it. So the first thing to do is to find all of the different internship programs that you are interested in. And so probably most of these are going to be running over the summer, and their application windows may be slightly different. So I want you to make a list of all the programs that you're interested in, know where you find the information to the program. So make a note of the URL and then make a note of the application window. And that's because they usually open and close in a very tight, maybe a month, a few weeks, but usually they won't be open before the beginning of the year. So you need to know when that window is open. And I also need you to go to the website and I need you to comb through it. I need you to read it all. So that includes the FAQ section, because as an administrator, I can tell you, I used to get contacted all the time and the answer was already on the website, usually on an FAQ, because I got asked the question enough that I actually wrote about it to kind of prevent people from asking it. It didn't help. To be honest, lots of people still contacted me. And that was frustrating because you were taking up my time where I could have been helping you with something else. And so, if you get enough of people asking you these questions, you begin to remember names. So just bear that in mind, because you want the administrators to be on your side. And if you've already annoyed them by getting in touch, asking silly questions, which are easily answerable, then when you finally do need some help and you can't find that information on the internet, then you might have kind of ruined your chances there. So a lot of people will happily give up their time before the application window is open to advise you on what the program is like. Is it a housed program where you're going to move somewhere? Do they provide housing? Do you have to find it yourself? Is it paid? Hopefully all the ones that you're applying for are paid, but I know that some of them aren't. For goodness sake, do not pay to be part of a program. I know those exist, but no, please only apply to ones where they are actually going to pay for your time. So if you contact administrators ahead of time, once you've gone through the entire website, you can make a list of questions that you can ask the administrators to learn more about the program. And you can ask them, probably you won't be able to find out exactly what the questions are on the application, or maybe they're going to be really kind and tell you ahead of time you don't know. But you could say, are there any really good examples of answers that you've received before? And so, getting that information ahead of time could really help you kind of point you in the direction of what they're looking for in their responses. However, if you do ask them for examples, and I'm sure that they will probably just verbally tell you the examples, they won't send you something that's written down. Don't copy those answers when you actually complete the application. This is going to sound silly, but I've told people, I don't know how many times, these would be my answers for this particular internship program. And so they would then see kind of what we were looking for. One of the candidates then put in my exact responses into their application. So when I was then reading it back, the first couple of answers, I was like, wow, this this is really good stuff. By the time I got to the third or fourth answer, I was like, wait a second, these are my answers. They're not necessarily this individual's answers. And so to me, that's cheating because they didn't actually put any thought into the answers at all. They stole mine. So don't plagiarize your answers, because obviously the reviewer is going to know that you haven't put any effort in, and that then might backfire you on the when they look at who they're going to accept, because that might not be you, because you haven't put any original thought into your responses. Know when the deadline is and click submit well in advance. Now, why is that? Clearly, on the day that the application window closes, there's going to be a huge rush of people trying to submit. And that might make the system crash. It might make it a little glitchy. But that means that when that window is closed, the application is gone. I've lost count of the number of people who've said, oh, I didn't realize it was midnight on that day, or I didn't realize it was midnight Pacific. I thought you meant midnight Hawaii. So you can get very creative with your reasons for missing the deadline window. But once it's closed, I'm going to say they're not going to make an exception for you. So, don't ask. The only way that they would make an exception is if something really went badly wrong with the application and it completely crashed and nobody could apply in the last, 24 hours, 12 hours, whatever it is. So make sure that you apply early. There's another reason for that. Whilst they probably won't begin reviewing the applications or the candidates before the window has closed, once it's closed, they will compile all of it together. And the way that we did it was in the order that it was all received. So yes, it was all done anonymously. I had no idea whose application I was looking at. But the first application I received was the person who submitted first. And then, the 1000th, the unlucky 1000th, they could have been writing some fantastic stuff. But if I'd read it numerous times up until that point, I'm not going to necessarily mark it as high as if it's the first time I've read that response in the packet. And trust me, there's very few ways that you can really answer some of these questions. And so, once the reviewers read it, I'm not going to say 10 or 20, but 50 to 100 times, they kind of get glazed over and you're like, next. So really, you want the person to be reading this at the beginning of the packet. So they're still excited. They're not kind of going, oh, crumbs, I've still got 800 to go. So just make sure you submit as soon as possible. You're going to log on to the application. You're going to complete the easy answers. So, your name, address, things like that. And then you're going to take a note of the questions. And then you're going to come back out and work on your answers in a Word or something similar document where you can make sure that you follow all of the instructions and that you can craft the most wonderful response to that question that you can think of. Once you have crafted the answer, you are then going to log back in, cut and paste your answers into the application. Make sure that the answers are still the same, because sometimes when you move them, they can change. And make sure that everything is in there before you hit submit. What are the questions that are going to earn your spot in this program? So, some of these applications are, 6 or more questions. Some of them are just a couple. It depends on how popular the experience that you're going for is. But I will say the majority of them will say, why are you interested in this experience of whatever it is? What makes you a good candidate? What things have you done previously which will help you in this experience? Who do you want to work with, or what department do you want to work with? So there's some very obvious questions that you can kind of predict as you think about this. And I want you to look at the very specific instructions for answering these questions. And you're going to stick to it. Because again, you're not going to be the exception to the rule. So if it's, I don't know, a 50-word response or a certain number of characters, then you're going to stick to it. Because a lot of these applications, if you try and go over, then it won't actually take any more information. It will cut it off. And so you don't want them to get an answer which is cut in half, because that doesn't make you look good. You're not going to be chosen because you didn't follow the instructions. So the first thing, why do you want to go to this program? What are you interested in? And I need you to tell them that you're interested in the subject. Sounds so ridiculous, but there are so many applications that I read, which, I was doing a STEM or a science summer program. So many of them didn't even mention enjoying science or medicine or, wanting to do experiments. They just kind of dive straight into, I'm going to become a medical doctor and this is going to look fantastic on my applications. Great, it would, but you are not going to be selected to the program on that answer. You need to tell me why you're interested in it. Not that it's going to help you in the future. I already know it's going to help you if you get in, because you can then use the references of the people wherever it is. It's obvious. So don't tell me something that's really, really obvious. Explain to me why you particularly are interested in that experience. Then when they talk about, what skills do you have that will help you in this experience, focus on the specific skills for that experience. Again, if you're trying to get into a science or lab-based program, you're going to be talking about, problem solving and enjoying being in a lab and learning experiments and pushing the scientific knowledge forward, things like that. Telling me that you have amazing leadership skills is fantastic and would be fantastic for a different kind of application, but that's not going to help you get into a kind of STEM-based experience. I mean, having leadership skills is great, but again, we want scientists or whatever it is that you're doing. So focus particularly on those things. If you are asked who you want to work with or which department you want to work in, this is going to sound so ridiculous, but you'd be surprised how many people screw this up. This is where you're going to go to the website and you're going to trawl through it and you're going to figure out who or where you want to work at that location. Okay? It's fantastic if you want to end up working for a particular person at, I don't know, Harvard, Yale, the Pasteur Institute in France. That's fantastic. That's not going to help you get in at this institute. So focus only on the people who are potential mentors. I can't believe I have to say that, but it's true. So many people wrote about someone that was absolutely not going to be a mentor and wasn't even remotely possible. I don't know quite why so many people messed that one up, but to me, it's obvious. I want to work at this institute in this research experience or internship experience, and I want to work with X. So make sure they work there and know the subject. A fantastic answer is always, I want to work with, such and such a person because I'm interested in the research that they're doing on blip, 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 or whatever it is. But make sure that it's particularly focused. And you might want to put in a couple of different names because you might want to just spread around the possibilities. Because I can tell you, if you make it through to the cut, then people will be looking for their names in those responses. And because if you want to work for them, then you are that more enticing for them to choose you. Answer all the questions and don't leave any blanks. Some programs, I think you have to put a response in before you can move on to the next one. But again, people put a space bar or a full stop or a period in there so they can move on. That doesn't look good. It just kind of makes you look sloppy. And I know that people who are kind of rushing at the very end and are just trying to get the application in on time often skip things. But if you skip things, you're probably not going to get picked. It just shows that you haven't taken the time to really think of all of the correct answers. Now, try and make your answers memorable. As I said a little while ago, there's only so many answers for some of these questions. So what sets you apart from everyone else who is applying? And one of the things that really got me was when people used analogies, or they used different quirky facts which kind of pulled you in. And they can be done really well, and they can be done utterly appallingly, and they will absolutely make sure that you do not get selected for this program. And so one of the analogies that I really liked was about ants, which might sound a bit crazy for a STEM program, but the person was talking about how all of the ants in an anthill are working towards the same goals. And so they, want to be a worker ant to help push the scientific knowledge forward. And then as they progress in their career, hopefully, their ant can progress through the hierarchy. It was a kind of cool answer. It definitely got everyone's attention. That person did get accepted because everyone thought it was just a nice way of showing their interest. On the other side, you don't want to come across as, a bit strange, a bit quirky. You want to entice the people who are reading this to want to meet you. So I know one of the answers that I was reading was about Sherlock Holmes, and it was sounding really good. I was like, this is going to go into problem solving. They're going to say they're a bit like Sherlock. They look at how things don't necessarily make sense, but when you look at the granular, they can kind of figure out all of the different pieces. Oh no, they then went on to talk about having addiction problems. So they got my interest, and then I was like, I don't know if that's a very good answer for you to get in here. This isn't Breaking Bad. We're not going to be cooking up anything. So again, think about what the person who's going to be reading it, what their response to whatever you're writing is. Another response was how someone had dissected a pet cat. And again, yes, you're very interested in biology and we do dissections, but there was just something about that answer. I was like, no, I don't think so. So try and make yourself memorable in a good way. And then use proper English, full words, grammar. I know that, some of these applications have very short responses, and that is there to kind of make sure that you can follow instructions and write your answers in a very succinct way. And, I've seen people try and expand this, so they're doing it in text speak, so your becomes you are. I've seen a couple of candidates string words together, so it looks like one massive word, and then you have to go through and try and figure out where the words break to figure out what on earth they were trying to say. That's not good. If we have to struggle to read or understand your answers, then you're going to go in the reject pile. Whoever is reading these applications have hundreds, if not thousands, to get through. So make it as easy for them as possible. Help them help you to get into the program. Another thing is, if they have references, make sure that whoever you're asking to supply a reference has enough time to submit it within the application window. Sometimes programs won't review your packet unless there is a reference which has been submitted. So make sure you give them plenty of time. It would be heartbreaking if you spend time crafting these wonderful responses and then you're not considered because you don't get all of your applications in. And if you can upload documents, you can. Some of these applications do let you upload documents. Make sure that you follow the rules again. So they might want, transcripts or examples of writing or whatever it is. But don't try and get around the answers by submitting a document to go along with it. So I've read answers which say, see attached document. And that isn't the way that some applications work. They don't even look at your attached documents until they've made a cut. So, maybe they've got 1,000 applications. They want to make it down to a manageable number. So maybe they're cutting it down to, 50 to 100. And then they give that information on to whomever it is who are going to be selecting their interns. So if you say, please see attached document, that's not even going to get read. So, make sure, follow the rules, that you upload the documents that they need, but don't try and kind of circumvent the application by putting in a cheeky extra answer sheet, because it's not going to help you. Now, you've hit submit. Fabulous. Now you wait. Normally you would get an automatic congratulations, we have received your application. And so it's been received, and you just need to hold your horses and wait for them to get back in touch with you. If you bother the administration, then they will remember who you are. So, if you've been in touch with them a couple of times before you've hit submit, and you've asked well thought out questions, fabulous. If you then make a nuisance of yourself after you've hit submit, that's really not going to help you if you need assistance on the other end. So please, the administrators are going to be super busy because they're going to be trying to help, whoever is reviewing the applications, or they are reviewing your applications. So again, don't make yourself a nuisance, which sounds, again, ridiculous. I shouldn't have to say it. But, I've had people who sent an email, and then, within an hour, they've sent another email like, you haven't responded. And it's like, congratulations, you emailed us at 8 p.m. at night. Most people are not going to be responding until the morning after. So, you're going to have to be patient. So again, don't make yourself an awkward, or put yourself in an awkward position where the administration don't want you in their program. They don't want to meet you because you've already proved yourself challenging before you even got there. So anyway, I think internships are a fantastic opportunity. I would encourage you to apply, and that is great because you will see if this is something that you want to do with your life, with your career. And even if you decide at the end of the experience that it isn't what you want, I don't consider that time wasted, because you've then been able to kind of cross that career path off, or narrow down what you want to do even further. So to me, that isn't a wasted experience. That is, a valuable use of your time. And then if it is something that you want to do, then hopefully those references will help you move on to the next stage. So having an internship experience is wonderful, can be very helpful. I encourage you to do so, but only submit something that you have thought out well. So I hope that helps. Please like the video if you enjoyed it, and I will see you the next time.